You're listening to the Faeries and Folklore podcast by Ronel. I'm dark fantasy author Ronel Janse van Vuuren. With over a decade of digging around in dusty folklore books, researching creatures of imagination that ignited my curiosity, I'm here to share the folklore in a nutshell and how I reimagined it for my writing in An Origin of the Fae. This is the Faeries and Folklore podcast. Hi, I'm your host Ronel Janse van Vuuren. You can just call me Ronel. In today's episode, we're continuing our exploration of the Fae realm. This episode is brought to you by my Dark Court Sisters book series, available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. 3 sisters, 3 destinies, 3 ways to destroy the world. Go to ronelthemythmaker.com/Dark Court Sisters series for more. You can now support my time in producing the podcast, researching, writing, and everything else involved by buying me a coffee. This can be a once-off thing, or you can buy me coffee again in the future at your discretion. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Ronel to support me. We're continuing our exploration of the Dark Fae. Today's fairy, Sluagh, Folklore in a Nutshell by Ronel. A shadow isn't merely a shadow, especially not at night. The Sluagh have been spoken about in whispers for thousands of years. At first they were seen as a specific type of Fae, but when Christianity came to the Celtic world, they became the unforgiven dead, the ones too bad to even enter hell. They could be seen as a flock of birds flying in a crescent. They were especially active on Samhain. They only flew about at night. They apparently didn't approach from the east and preferred the west, which is why west-facing windows were always closed when someone in the house was ill, so they couldn't enter and steal the soul. The Sluagh, or the host, would hover around houses with dying people in it so they could capture the soul and make it part of them. Screaming would fill the house once the deed was done. They were supposedly able to shapeshift between winged, corpse-like creatures and birds, or even just darkness. They huddled in dark, forgotten places during daytime, coming out at night to terrorize humans. Because they weren't allowed in Faerie or the other world, they needed another source of power. They found it in humans. Either they devoured the souls of the nearly dead, or they abducted people from the earth, feeding on them during their mad dash through the sky. In some traditions they are part of the Wild Hunt and of the Unseelie Court, but for the most part they are an entity all their own. They are mostly confined to Irish and Scottish traditions. There are 2 ways to accidentally call to the Sluagh. One is to utter their name. The other is to have a hopeless longing in your heart, a sadness so bad that you could die of a broken heart. The Sluagh will have you for dinner if you don't figure out how to see the bright side. Whether part of the Unseelie Court or a group of their own, it is impossible to escape them once they've picked up your scent and started the hunt. And now for my interpretation of the Fae in An Origin of the Fae, Sluagh. The Sluagh consist of Fae who have behaved so badly that they don't deserve any peace. They lose their bodies and become part of the host. They don't have much choice but to do what the Dark King orders. They devour souls. They are seen as a dark cloud moving across the night sky. They can sense the thoughts and feelings of mortals and Fae. As servants of Baba Yaga, they can gather information and they can cause specific nightmares. When they move through the sky, it sounds like screeching from a large crowd. They can shapeshift into corpse-like creatures with wings, talons, and an assortment of weapons upon their person. As a little bonus, let's look at Sluagh, translated to Afrikaans, onsienlike menigte. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Faeries and Folklore podcast, and that you've learned something new about Faerie. Remember that you can get a transcript of this episode in the description. If you're new to the podcast, why not go and grab your free copy of Unseen, the second book in the fairy tale series, on my website, ronelthemythmaker.com. Loads of folklore, magic, and danger await. Take care.